Shalom, shalom, shalom. Peace be unto you. This is your brother Ben Sedek Bentora, live and direct with brother Mike Michael here. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
Healthy shalom.
I got something I want to see. You got I was like, you know if you guys, I was like, you know if you guys noticed, but on my shirt it said only Abba Yahweh can judge me, because if you guys trust in His commandments, you guys follow what He asks you to do, and you allow Him, you guys trust in Him and follow His commands, do what He asks you to do. When the kingdom come, enter the kingdom and live eternal life. So just continue to hold on, continue to believe, and you will make it to the kingdom. Praise Abba Yahweh.
Praise his name. Yes, beloved. So today we're going to talk about the elites, the international bankers, and how they enslaved everyone except themselves without people even knowing about it. Okay. For those of us who believe in the scriptures, if we go to the book of Bereshit, the Hebrew or Genesis, we realize that when the Almighty created man, He put man into paradise. He gave man everything that he needed. But as we know, the falling ones at the time, Satan or Satan, was around and he wanted the domain, the jurisdiction over everything. So his plan, as he was successful, was to get Adam and his wife Hawa or Eve to sin. So when Adam sinned, all the authority of Adam was now transferred, that jurisdiction over to Satan or Satan. That's why in the scripture it said, in the New Testament, Brit Kadasha, the 2 Corinthians, I think 4:4, it said, Satan or Satan is the God of this world. How did he become so? But when Adam had sinned and transferred all authority over to him. Okay, so that's why in the book of Luke, when the Messiah was going through the temptation, one of the temptation was the devil showed him all the kingdoms of the world, all the reign and all their splendor. And the devil said unto the Messiah, all these were given to me, and I could give them to whomsoever I choose. All you have to do is bow down and worship me. Remember, the Messiah never challenged them in the sense of who gave it to you, because it was true. All the Messiah did, the Messiah rebuked him and said, away from me, Satan, for thou shalt worship the Almighty, and him only shall thou serve. Now, the point there was this: Satan showed him all the kingdoms of the world, all the esteem, and he offered them to the Messiah if the Messiah would worship him. Well, the Messiah was not the only one. Why? Because from the beginning, from men were created on the earth, Satan has been offering the world to men and luxury and vanity. And that's the downfall of most people, vanity. Okay? So that's how men became enslaved, by their desire of vanities. Now what happened in the garden? Everything was free. Free lunch, free breakfast, free dinner. All they had to do was till the ground and just be obedient to the Almighty, right? But after sin, what happened? The Almighty drove them out. And guess what? Life become hard. Life become tough. By the sweat of thy brow shall thou eat bread. What happened? Men realize that they have to work hard now for the first time. But then as time goes by, there's a group of wicked ones who came around and said, you know what? Yeah, men have to work, but we're going to let others work while we collect. We are going to set a system where the majority work and we collect. Now, how this happened in ancient time, how money started was this. One person will raise goat, another person will raise grapes. The person who have goats and need grape, and the person with grapes need goats. So they do exchange, and that's what money is. Money is exchange. Now, as time start to go by, people start to realize the importance of minerals, gold, silver, and all that stuff. So they start to see the value in them. So if somebody doesn't have goat or corn or whatever they grow, they could produce gold or silver in exchange. So that's why in the scripture, gold and silver is kesef zahab. Kesef is silver, zahab is gold. That was ancient money. Okay? So as time goes by, gold and silver was tangible, still tangible evidence of money, real money. For example, when we own gold or silver, we are in control of real money. Okay, so the elite, who are run by and ruled by a Satan or Satan, they knew that it's going to be hard for them to enslave the people who have tangible money. So what they did, as time goes by, they made a plot to get rid of the gold and silver as standard money. So let's fast forward in time, come into like modern times. What happened was this. Let's go to America, for example. When America broke off from England, which was a British company, the United States is a British corporation that was doing business overseas. 28 USC, or 28 of the United States Code 3002 158, it states clearly that the United States is a federal corporation. Now, this corporation, like all corporations, have an headquarters. Originally, it's, and a lot of people don't know this, it's in the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia is the United States of America. Under UCC, that's the Uniform Commercial Code, that's the code that governs finance and banking internationally. Under UCC 9-307, it states under debtors that the United States is in the District of Columbia. The United States is the District of Columbia. So thus we get the term federal corporation. It's a federal territory, a corporation. Okay, this was confirmed by the Act of a district on February 5th, 1871, when they turned it into a corporate policy for it to become a corporation. So that's why all federal territories, all federal agencies are in the District of Columbia. Okay, whether it's the Veterans Affairs, the United States Commerce, the United States Department of Health and Human Services, so on and so forth. They're in DC because these are all franchises of the United States Corporation. So what happened was this. When this corporation came here in July 4th, 1776, the so-called independence, this was when they established the New World Order. Okay, that's why they put on the back of the dollar bill, Nuevos Annuit Acceptos. Okay, Annuit Acceptos has arrived. And at the bottom, he talk about the New World Order. Okay, Nuevo Seclora. So Annuit Acceptos mean the New World Order has arrived. That's what it was saying on the back of the money. And it's still there today. When? July 4th, 1776. If you look at that pyramid, that's on the back of the dollar bill. If you look at the bottom of it, you see some Roman numerals. If you add up those Roman numerals, it came up to 1776. Okay, so it's built upon the concept of ancient Egypt. Okay, ancient Egypt. That's why the pyramid is there. The reason why the pyramid have it's not all the way joined together. There's a space in between the top and the rest of the pyramid, was because right in the middle of that gap, there's a shining eye. That eye symbolizes what the ancient Egyptian referred to as Osiris, okay, which was known as the sun god, the all-seeing eyes of Osiris. He had many names, but that was one of the names, Osiris, the sun god, okay, watching over the world. That's where we get the word Illuminati from. The light is illuminating, watching all over the world. In 1776 was the birth of the New World Order in America, this corporation. So what they did, like I said, they turned everybody into a corporate fiction, so that they can enslave the masses of people. So, for example, if you look at the back of your Social Security card, they'll tell you on it that that card is not really your card. It is the property of the Social Security Administration, and it must be returned to them upon request to do so. So when people walking around say they have a Social Security card, it's not yours, it's not mine. It belongs to the corporation. Okay, and it's crazy. If you look at these cards, for example, these Social Security cards, if you look at them, for example, for example, the name on it is all capital letters. I mean, some of you might hear this before, but I'm going to explain what that means. If you look in the, for example, the Black's Law Dictionary, okay, I have the sixth edition. If you look under what is known as capitis diminutia maxima, what that means is when the name is capitis, capitis means capital. It's diminished it's maximum diminished, meaning when the name is all capitalized, the person's status is totally. Why? Let me tell you why. This goes all the way back to ancient Rome, where, as we know, America is a granddaughter of Rome. How do we know that? Because Rome historically was dismantled, not destroyed, but dismantled um, in 476 at the Common Era, 476 AD. When it was dismantled, it went and become the 10 European nations, as was prophesied by the prophet Daniel and also the book of Revelation. Now, one of those 10 nations was known as Britannia, or the Romans called it Britannica. From this Britannia or Britannica came England, and then America broke away from England. So America is a great granddaughter of Rome. Okay, no doubt about that. So what happened was this: the Romans back then, whenever they capture somebody and they have them as slaves, what they'll do, depending on the person's status, if the person is a first slave, they'll put their name in all capital, a name that look like their names in all capital letters. Okay, what that means? It's capitis diminutia maxima, meaning the person have no rights. They are permanent. They're officially a slave. Okay, and they have no rights. So that's why when we look on, for example, any government document like the social security card, the driver's license, the passport, when you get a ticket, anything like that, government, when you look, the name that look like yours, it is in all capital letters. And the reason being, because the government has turned everybody into a corporation for financial and tax purposes only. Why? Because a fleshly man and woman cannot be taxed. No one can tax a flesh being. You cannot tax a flesh person. So what they do, they turn the person into what is called a corporation by giving them this all caps name, known as a corporation. A corporation comes from the Latin word corpus, which means dead. Okay, a corporation is a dead entity. It's not a living being. What they did, they turned everybody into that all caps name, a corporation. And then what they did, this is the trick. I don't know if any of you ever noticed when you go to do certain business with the government, whether it's driver's license, anything like that, you'll see the name in all caps automatically. Okay. And then at the bottom or somewhere on the page, they'll have you print or sign, and you have to sign in your proper name. The reason why, a joinder, they're having us acknowledging that we are responsible for that all caps name. We're responsible for everything that is charged to that all caps name. So we think it's our name. So when we get the driver's license, the social security card or whatever, we sign in our proper name or a proper noun, upon lowercase, some people all lowercase. And what we did, we give them consent. The reason being, they cannot do anything without our consent. So they need our consent. The only thing is they don't give us full disclosure what they're doing. They just tell us to sign things without telling us what's going on. So we give them jurisdiction or we give them consent without even having any idea what we're doing. Okay? So that's why we end up in this situation. So back to what I was saying now. So when the name is all caps, it means that the person is a fully completed, full slave. No doubt about it. They are totally enslaved, no freedom, no rights. Then if you look also in the Black's Law Dictionary, you'll see capitis, which means capital, diminution maxima. When the name is capitalized, and then sometimes you'll see sometimes some people, they have one name like their first name upon lowercase, and then the last name is all caps. What that is saying, it's saying they have some rights. They are not totally free. They have some rights. Okay. When both names are in lower and uppercase, that's when the person get their freedom and they now move from a slave to a free person. So it's very, very important to understand. Now let's come to modern time. In the year 1666, or shortly after the time of the Black Plague or the legionary disease, what happened? A lot of people in Europe were dying. So when they died, there was a lot of property that was abandoned because the owners died. They went overseas on trips. Some of them died in the country, in the fields, whatever. And there was a lot of property. So what happened? The British Parliament passed a law known as an act known as the Setake. You can Google it. The Setake is a trust, and in this trust, what they did, they everybody is presumed to be dead unless you can come back and prove that you're alive. So everybody is dead unless you can come and prove to them that you're alive. That's why sometimes when you see videos and you'll see sometimes them brothers and sisters, they go to court or they're dealing with entities and they'll say, I am the living man, I am the living woman. What they're doing, they're saying to the entity that they're standing in front, that I'm not the dead entity you have in front of you. I am the living man. I am not, even though you presume me to be dead, I'm showing you that I'm not dead. So that's where that came from in 1666, the Setake Act written by the British Parliament in England. Okay, so everybody is presumed to be dead until we can come and prove ourselves to be alive. An example, for example, court. Let's go to courts today. If you look at the word court, spelled COURT, is the same spelling for like a basketball court, a tennis court, a racquetball court. Okay, the reason being, these are places that games are played on. We play games on courts. Okay, and it's amazing because these games, like let's say a basketball game, you'll have team A versus team B, right? And in the middle, you have what is known as a referee. Now, both teams that are playing must know the rules of the game, and the person who play by the rules and do better will win. And then the referee is there to award the person who wins the game. Okay, you know what that means? It's just like the court. That way you go to where we think we're going for justice. What happened in these courts, these kangaroo courts, same thing. You have Tom versus the state, this versus that, same thing. And it's in a court, okay? It's a game. The only thing with this game, sometimes this game is a game of life and death. The referee, and believe it or not, sometimes they even call them referees, magistrate, judges, they call them referees. They actually see who is playing by the rules and award victory to one party over the other. That's their job. Okay. So it's all a game. It's a court. It's have nothing to do with justice. It has to do with money. How do we know it have to do with money? Because that judge that sit up on that bench, if you look up that word bench in the in the law dictionary, like the Black's Law Dictionary, you'll see that the word bench comes from the Latin word bank. It's spelled BANC, but C and K is used interchangeably. So bench is bank. So when we say the judge sit up on the bench, we are actually saying the judge sit up on the bank. The judge represents the bank. Okay, it's all banking and finance. Let me back up and show why. When we were at the time when the Romans were ruling the world, and they still do in a certain way, what happened was this. The Romans came up with what is known as maritime admiralty law. Maritime means seas or water. Admiralty means military. What the Romans did, they made this law so that they can combat pirates on the high seas and try them at seas. Why? Because seas are known as international jurisdiction. When somebody way out in the water, they're into international water. So the Romans came up with this maritime admiralty law so they can try pirates. So this law was the genesis for what we know as UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. This is the same code that controls banking and finance. Okay, so when that judge sat on the bench or the bank, the judge is there to bring in money to the bank. Okay, that's his job, to bring money to the bank. Okay, and they do it all the time. Let me give you a case in point how the judge brings money to the bank. Sometimes they have Latin terms like bench warrant. Now, if you look at that word, bench warrant just means that the judge signed a warrant from the bench. Okay. If you look at that bench, like we said, the word bench means bank. Okay. Bench means bank, and warrant means authority. So when they sign a bench warrant, it's actually saying bank's authority. That money have to be paid to the bank. In other words, when they arrest this person have to pay some type of fines, they have to pay a bill, whatever. It goes, the bank is collecting out of it. So the judge is there. Traffic so-called court is the same thing. That the magistrate is sitting there on the bench and trying to pull in as much money for the bank. Okay. The international bankers, or we call them banksters, they run the world. That's the tool that Satan uses to enslave man on the face of the earth. Okay, they are evil. They use their power of the money and they build and destroy nations. Okay, many nations right now are in poverty because they have to sometimes sign away their natural resources to these international bankers, and when they can't pay, the bankers come in and capture their resource. That's why the scripture states clearly that the borrower is a slave to the lender. Okay. He also said, money lenders oppress my people and creditors cheat them. Okay. So that all caps, like I said, you have nothing to do with it. Everything that they make, everything is business. Okay. Everything is water. Water, you say, what do I mean? Let me give an example. Sometimes if you look on paper, if you're filling out certain forms like IRS or bankruptcy, any kind of form, you'll see sometimes they use terms like what's your liquid assets? Liquid asset, they're talking about your finance. Why is it liquid? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Money is water and water is money. Liquid assets. For example, if you look at if you look at a literal bank, at a literal river, if you look at a river, what defines a river? Water flowing between two banks. That's what a river is. Now think about that. The water that is flowing between the two river banks are called currency. They talk about the current flow, the currency, the water currency. Guess what? It's the same thing. The currency or the money, the water, the liquid, it flows between the banks, just like how the river have the water flowing between two banks. Okay, this liquid asset, this money, literally flow between the banks, the financial entities. So it's all liquid, it's all money. Okay, and another example, people don't know this, but when, for example, somebody go to one of these kangaroo courts, the reason why that judge is wearing black is because it came from an ancient practice of the Grim Reaper. Okay, he's presiding over the dead. In ancient time, people wear black sackcloth to symbolize his mourning or the dead. Okay, the judge is in black because the person in front of him is an all caps name and he's presiding over a dead entity. Okay, very serious. That's why, for example, if you look at gravestones, the name of the deceased is in all caps letter because they're now a dead entity. So that judge is in black. He's presiding over the dead. Okay, he's presiding over the dead because the paper in front of him that he have that you think is your name is not your name. What he have a paper with the all caps name, the dead entity that sounds like you, but it's spelled all caps. That's not your name. Okay, so he's presiding over the dead and seeing how much money that he can get for the corporation at the same time. Okay. Another thing, if you guys notice, when you look at these kangaroo courts, a lot of them they have a gate. Like when somebody is called up, they have to go through a gate and they go over into the section where the lawyers and the judges are. Well, that gate is what separates the sea and the land. What am I saying, you might ask? Even though it's all a metaphor. Why? The people who are in the podiums, they are on land. Okay, they are the spectator watching the game. Remember I spoke earlier about the court. When you go to the basketball game, you see the spectator, they're sitting there and in their seats and they're watching the two teams play on the court. When you go to these kangaroo courts, are the same thing. The people sit in the podium and then the two parties battling out there in the court. Once the person get called and they enter through that gate to go where the judges is, they are now entering into maritime, admiralty, the banking jurisdiction. They are moving from land now to sea. Okay? Very, very important. This take a lot of research to understand this. Okay? And once you enter into their jurisdiction, they are gonna try to see how much money they can get because it's all business. Okay, you have nothing to do with justice and righteousness and stuff like that. It is corruption. If we go back, those of us who are biblically or scripturally inclined, if we go back, for example, to the scripture, we'll see that the Messiah, Yahushua, he went into the temple in Jerusalem, and he turned over the table with the money lenders. Who are these money lenders? They were bankers. Okay, and he turned it over and he grabbed a whip and he started to whip them. And what did he say? My father's house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations, and you have made it into a den of thieves. These banksters were referred to as thieves. Let me tell you what they were doing. And we study the history. Anybody can research it. They were taking stuff and they were there was a lot of things people were bringing in for offerings that was to be sacrificed, and they were taking some of them and selling them. They were also messing with the weight, so that the people pay more. The people pay more, okay, and gets less product. They were messing with the scale. They were tampering with it, where the scripture forbade. That's theft, and they were doing a lot of bad things, just like they did do today, just to rip off the people, the banking system. And I'm going to come to that shortly, how the banks rip us off today. So they were doing it. And when the Messiah whipped them, you remember what happened? Immediately, the following day, they planned to kill him. Not because of his message that he's teaching, but because he attacked their financial system. He attacked their financial banking system. So right away they say they plan to kill him. That's how evil these demons were. Okay, and they still are here today. So that's why they decided to kill him. They didn't care anything about his doctrine, his ministry. It's the fact that he came and he attacked the banking system. Immediately following day, they had a meeting to get rid of Messiah because he attacked the infrastructure of the banking system and turn over the table and stuff like that. And they have been like that ever since. Abraham Lincoln in the 19th century, he wanted to come up with the greenback, money backed by gold, and make that permanent. And guess what they did? They assassinated him. John F. Kennedy in the 60s, he came out and said the IRS is too powerful. He wanted to put a check and balance on them. He wanted to audit them. Guess what happened? He was gone too. Okay, Saddam Hussein over there in Iraq in the 90s. Saddam signed his death warrant when he first said he's gonna start to exchange his oil for euro instead of the US dollar. Y'all know what happened to him. Colonel Gaddafi in Libya came back and he said he was gonna build up a United States of Africa, meaning he's gonna use his trillions or billions, how much he have of gold, and he's gonna set up a united Africa where people don't have to go over the west from Africa. They could stay in Africa and build it. And he's gonna use his gold money and he won't depend on the west and use his oil elsewhere. And you know what happened to him? What's amazing about it, it doesn't matter party politics. Party politics is a trick, it's a deception. Why? Because it was Bush Senior, right? Bush Senior that was president when they took out Saddam, and he's a Republican. Okay? And guess what happened? It was President Obama, who was a Democrat, that sent in forces to take out Gaddafi. So it doesn't matter. This party thing is just two different wings of the same demonic bird, right? Just to oppress, deceive the people, and rob them. Now, many of you sometime have heard the term the United States debt. The United States in trillions of dollars debt. Yes, still the United States have a lot of money. So it used to confuse me too. I used to be like, this is supposed to be the richest country in the world. How are they in trillions of dollars of debt? And if they're in trillions of dollars of debt, how they are giving out billions and billions of dollars to other countries? I didn't understand it. But when I started to learn and I understood that there's two United States. We have the United States Geography Republic, meaning the 50th geographical state. Okay, that is different from the United States Corporation and the that I talk about under 28 USC 300215A. There are two different United States. It's two different things. It's just like it is every state. Every state every state have two states. You have the republic, meaning the landmass, which is of, for, and by the people, and then you have the corporate state, which is the state of. That's why, for example, if you take a map and you look at a map, you'll see on the map, you'll see the 50 states, you'll see New York, you'll see Washington, you'll see Florida, you'll see California, etc. You will never see the word state of written on any map. So where did the state of came from? Why? Every state now have a state of. So you have Florida State, which is the geographical location from Alabama, Georgia, all the way to the Keys. That's Florida State. It's the republic. The state of Florida is the federal jurisdiction that is doing business within the state. New York is the same thing. You have the state of New York, which is a corporation of the District of Columbia, and then you have New York State, which is the Republic geological era. And if you go through all the states, you see that you have the federal states, and then you have the geographical states. So in other words, there's 100 states, 50 geographical landmass, and 50 state of within that landmass. And that was done through the Buck Act in the 1940s, where the federal corporation extend its franchisee down into the state. So there are many corporations, many contracts. You have the District of Columbia that they come and they're in Texas as the state of Texas. Then in the state, then you have the county of such and such. Then you have the county state of. So it's a lot of stuff. For example, here in Florida, we have Broward County, that's the geographical area. Then we have the county of Broward, that's the corporation. Then you have the town of such and such. Then you have town such and such. So it's many different franchisees that trickle all the way down that come from the District of Columbia. Okay, it's all a massive corporation. Everything is business. Everything is money. We hear this term all the time. Marriage, for example. Marriage is between a man and a woman. Originally, the Creator created man and woman so that they can reproduce, man and woman. Okay? That's it. But then the banksters come along and say, well, for you to be recognized as man and woman, man and wife, you need to get a permit. The word permit means permission. We have to give you a permit, and to get that permit, it's not free. Guess what? You have to spend some money to get that permission that the Almighty gave us naturally. Okay, everything is permit, license, permission. Okay, and when people die, they make money off of the certificate. Okay, the birth certificate. Many people don't know that's another history in itself. You know, it's a monetary paper that is made that is sold upon the stock market, and it was promised to pay off the debt. So back to the debt. How did the United States have become so much in debt? Well, let me break it down for those who don't know. Remember I said earlier, the United States was a British corporation doing business overseas, and they came here and they formed the corporation. On July 4th, 1766, the New World Order has arrived, and on February 5th, 1871, they formed the District of Columbia, which is the United States right there. Now, this is what happened. That company, 28 USC 300215A, it became bankrupt. When it became bankrupt, what happened? The executive and the people who run this corporation, the United States, they went to the international bankers and said, look, we need money for our corporation. You know why they need money? Let me back up a little again. During the war, or the Civil War, that was instigated by the international bankers, What they were doing, they were funding both sides of the war, north against south. And when they were funding them, a lot of them were getting arms on loans with the idea to pay back. Okay, that
Mhm.
until this day, America is still paying money to England. That's one of the things a lot of people don't know. So they get all these loans, for weapon during the Civil War and so on and so forth. The company went broke. Okay, this company that was formed in 1871 here, it get broke. So when they get broke, they went to the international bankers like the Rothschilds and stuff like that who runs it, and they say, look, we need money to run the corporation. So what the international bankers say, look, for you to get the money, you have to have collateral. So what the corporation does, they say, well, the best collateral we have is our citizen, our people. So what they did, they said they're going to pledge the people as collateral. And how they do it? Through the birth certificate. That's why those birth certificates are so valuable. Each person is expected to make a certain amount of money during their lifetime, and the money from that, they'll take a lot of tax out of it and pay back the international bankers. Okay, it's deep. It's all a scam on the people. Now, like I said, it's all business. Marriage, I was saying earlier, is business. Marriage is not like what people think when the government involved. The government does not involve in marriage because of any morality or spirituality. They are into it to marry you to the state so that you can sign over the consent to your family and your offspring through this certificate. They have control of any offspring that came through that contract. There's a Supreme Court ruling. I don't remember it right now, but I'll post it later, where the Supreme Court said a marriage is between a man and a woman, and the state is the jealous partner in between. Okay, so that's how they do it. For example, a young man or a man, it don't have to be a young man, in going down the road, he met a young lady. Everybody know that's his woman. They're engaged. People come along and say, "Hey, you sure that's the right person for you?" And the young man might respond and say, "Man, that's my life partner, and that's none of your business." Partner, business. That those are financial terms. That's none of your business because that's my partner. Okay? So everything is business, brothers and sisters out there. Everything is business. Now, let me touch upon the banking system for those who don't understand how evil this is and how wicked. Banks do not lend money. There are Supreme Court cases that say banks don't lend money. They cannot lend money. Okay? This is what banks do. They pretend that they lend you money. They make money out of thin air. Anybody can research this and see this. This is a known fact. Bankers do not loan money. Let me tell you how it works. Let's use a mortgage, for example. There's a reason why it's called mortgage. It's two French words put together. Mort, which means dead or death. Engage means engagement. So mortgage means you're engaged to debt, DEATH, for the rest of your life. Okay, even if you pay off that house, if you don't pay the taxes, they come and take away the whole entire house. That's how corrupt it is. So you work all your life, pay off a mortgage to an institution that never loan you any money, and then if for some reason you have some financial difficulty or you can't pay the taxes, they use that and take away the whole entire property. Okay, let me explain how the mortgage work. All right, you go down the road, you see a property, you like the property, you don't have the money to buy it cash. You find a bank or a financial institution and you say, look, I find this property and I want to buy it. The bank say, all right, fill out an application. What is the application for? They want to see if you're qualified, if you'll have the ability to pay what they're going to require you to pay. Okay, and they check your credit to see if you have a good credit of paying. All right, let's say everything goes good. The bank take that information that you fill out, that credit information, and you don't know it, but they open an account with that information in your name. Okay. When the time come, go forward for the time for you to close. They use that information that they input and they bring a bunch of paperwork to you. Anybody ever been to a closing will understand what I'm saying. And you fill out tons of paperwork. The two most important ones you're going to see there is one called a mortgage and a promissory note. The mortgage in some states it's called a deed of trust, but it's the same thing. And what how it work is this: when you sign those two, the mortgage, you're saying in the mortgage that look, you're saying in the promissory note that look, if I don't fulfill what I agree to pay, then you guys could come and take back the house, that's what it is. So you sign that, but this is the trick. When you sign all the paper, the bank rep or the financial institution rep, they shake your hand, congratulations. There's a sign right here, but don't date it. Now, people don't know why most of the time they say don't date it. Why? Because they're going to take that promissory note, and that promissory note is a check. Let me explain how it works. The promissory note under the UCC, remember I told you earlier, is the code that governs banking and commerce. Under the UCC, Uniform Commercial Code, money is considered like cashier's check, the fiat currency that we use, like a $1, $5, all of that, money orders, and guess what? A promissory note falls under that. Now, if you notice the promissory note, it looks like a check. It's a sometimes you'll see say stuff like pay to the order of. When you have a regular check, it's the same thing. Pay to the order of. The money order said the same thing because they are financial transaction. This is what happened. If you notice, if you go to the bank to cash a check, they're gonna tell you sign it. If you don't sign it, they won't do anything. They'll send it back to you. Why? Because the signature give it what is known as commercial energy. So that promissory note, let's use a figure. Let's say that house is selling for 100,000. They tell you sign at the bottom. So when you sign it, what happens? You just give the bank $100,000. The bank never give you any money. You just sign a promissory note of $100,000. The reason why they don't date it yet, the bank gonna take it another day when they're and take it to the Federal Reserve window, and they're gonna date it, and they're gonna cash it out. They can get anywhere between 3 and 10 times the amount. They call it fractional banking. All banks do that. So let's say they get 10 times the amount, so that 100,000 becomes $1,000,000. Where did that $1,000,000 come from? Not from the bank that you sign up anything with. That came from your promissory note that you sign, and they take it into the bank with a thin air and just type up in the computer $1,000,000. Just type it up. Nobody give you any money, just type it up. So when they type it up now, it's even gets sweeter. Sometimes they take that $1,000,000, what they pay for the house. That house is paid off. A lot of people don't know. They take that 100,000 from that million and they pay off the house, and the bank pocket 900,000. Wait, it get worse. They take that promissory note also, and then what they do, they put it into what is known as a pool with sometimes 50,000 other mortgages and promissory note. It's called securitization. They're securitizing the loan. And then what they do, they chop them up in bundles and sold them on the stock market as security certificates. Okay? So at this time, the mortgage, the promissory note is gone. History. And the example we use with that is like a carrot. If you get a carrot and you juice the carrot, let's say for whatever reason, can you go back and unjuice the carrot after you juice it? No, that carrot is already gone. It's juiced forever. You can't go back and unjuice it. That's how the promissory note works. Once they sell it on the stock market of stock, it's gone. Converted to stock, cannot be returned. Okay? So this is where it gets sweet now. In this pool, they have a thing, all securitization pool have this, where they put all these mortgages. They have what is known as a default swap. In the default swap, there's a section there that says if the homeowner for some reason default, on day 91, the bank or the financial institution or the so-called creditor can come back and claim the insurance for the property again. So that's why when people are going through a lot of these foreclosures, the bank will encourage them and say, wait 90 days, wait 90 days. But people don't know why they're telling them 90 days. Because on day 90, after day 90 and day 91, the bank now can now go to the default swap insurance and collect for that property all over again. And then when they finish, they still kick out the homeowner. So no, not only did they make that gazillion amount of dollar from the fractional banking of the Federal Reserve, They also securitize it and have insurance on it. Now, this is the crazy part. If anybody was to take that house, okay, it will be the insurance company, not the bank. Give you an example. If somebody have a car and the car meet into an accident and it's written off, guess who have right to the salvage? The insurance company, not the finance company. Okay, that's another scam. Now, to prove this, there was a famous case, December 7, 1968, Jerome Daly versus First National Bank of Montgomery. Okay, this case was tried and it was overseen by a justice of the peace that oversees it. And what's amazing, the defendant there was a gentleman by the name of Jerome Daly, and he was going through foreclosure. Back then, they had a trial by jury. So Mr. Daly, the scam at the bank that they didn't loan him any money and it was all a scam. They used his own signature and promissory note and loan it back to him. He went, and what he did, he was smart. He subpoenaed the bank manager to come and testify on the stand. So when the bank manager came, Mr. Daly cross-questioned him and asked him, say, all these things what I'm saying about how the bank doesn't loan any money, is it true? And the bank manager confessed, understand in front of the jury that everything Mr. Daly said is true. Banks don't lend any money. They use his signature and everything that we just explained, he explained to them. And the bank manager agreed. And guess what? The jury came back and awarded the property to Mr. Daly. They were angry. Now, this is what I heard. I haven't confirmed it, but many people say later on they overturn it. But the point what I'm making is he brought forward that argument. It was proven, it was confessed by the bank manager that banks never loan any money. Okay, they trick you, make you think that they loan you money, but they didn't lend you money. You are the one who give them money with your promissory note. And not only banks, but car loans are the same thing. It's the same thing. You sign a promissory note, the bank take it and they cash it out of the Federal Reserve. They pay off it, they pocket the rest. The car is paid for. It's insured and all of that stuff, and no money come from the bank. It's your promissory note that generate all of that they exchange at the Federal Reserve without even telling you. And none of this is disclosed. Student loan is the same thing. Okay, they don't loan any money. They just make up this thing with a thin air with a promissory note, and that's it. And then they come after you later when they say you owe them. How can you owe something that you were not loaned in the first place? Many people don't know that. A couple years ago, this is what happened. To prove this, I know certain people were going through a foreclosure. I learned it, foreclosures, and I learned this later on. And I started to learn about satisfaction of mortgage. Okay, I'm gonna drop the bomb for those who don't know. I started research and I said satisfaction of mortgage. So when I learned how the system works, and I learned that the houses are already paid for, what happened by law? The banks are supposed to file it in the state county register that the mortgage is satisfied. Satisfied means it's paid in full. So I have this friend, he was going through some foreclosure, and I said, let me go look up your property. And when I look into the county office or the county clerk's office, whatever they call it, the court recording office, when I look, it says mortgage paid in full and satisfied. So I print it out and I brought it to him and I said, look at this. He said, what does that mean? I said, you don't know what paid in full mean? He said, yeah, but I just start paying the mortgage. So how can the mortgage pay in full? And I said, look over here, satisfaction of mortgage. I said, can you see that? He said, yes. He said, what's going on? How is the house paid in full and how is the mortgage satisfied? So I explained the whole process to him. And I said, the reason why, because the house was paid off long time with your signature. They don't tell you and they register it because they know most people don't know this. So he said, what do I do? I said, what I will do, I will get a copy of that and show the bank certified that how are you coming at me saying I owe this property and the property is registered as satisfied and paid. It doesn't matter who paid, it's paid off and satisfied in full. And he did it. And you know what they did? They didn't give him the house free and clear, but they made a deal with him to stay in his house. And I did that with several people. You know what they started to do after that? We start to realize when we go to a lot of county recording office, they're not putting it there anymore. They're not putting it in because people start to find out the scam. Okay? They paid it off and they register it in the county recording office as paid in full. I remember years ago I went with another friend when he went there. And when he went to the court, he was defending himself. And he said to the judge, it was right down here in South Florida. He went and he said to the judge, my house is paid in full, satisfied, mortgage. And you know what happened? Because we saw the document. For some reason, the guy could have produced it to the judge. And the judge said, and the judge is right, the judge said, without that evidence, I cannot give you the house free and clear. Okay? And then when we went outside, the lawyer was talking to him, and the lawyer was like, what satisfaction of mortgage you're talking about? And the guy was like, we saw it. And the lawyer was like, my client didn't register and we saw it. But for some reason, they removed it. So it's a done thing. They know people catching on it. And in some states, they call it a different thing. Something with conveyance of mortgage. They have different terminology. You have to research it. But it means the same thing, that the thing is paid off in full. And the people don't owe the money. It's already taken care of, and the bank make gazillion money off it. So they're not losing anything. But yet still, they'll kick the homeowner out of the house and do the cycle all over again. So sometimes that one house, they're making gazillion money off that house while kicking the people off on the street. The banking system, that's what they call them, banksters. It is evil, it is demonic, and it is corrupt. Okay? But the Most High is going to bring forth his judgment. He doesn't like iniquity. He doesn't like evil. He doesn't like transgression. He doesn't like to see people taking advantage of the poor. He doesn't like any kind of stuff like that. And when he's ready, he bring forth calamity and justice and judgment. And when his judgment comes, it is swift and it's not pretty, you know. And like I said, they do the same thing with the student loans. They do everything. Another thing a lot of people don't understand, and let me share this before I finish. The social security number, it's one of the most dangerous number on the planet. Let me tell you why. It's used as a tracking, all right? It's used as a tracking, and sometimes they use it as an identifying number. The thing with that, why it's dangerous, is this: a person's whole life is tied to that social security number. And sometimes if it gets into the wrong hand, guess what happens? They steal every identity and everything about the individual. A lot of people don't know this. The social security number, a lot of places you don't have to show it, that is telling you that you have to show it. 42 USC, okay, 408 CE say it's a felony to compel someone to produce a social security number for identification purposes. The Privacy Act of 1974 states clearly that it's a privacy issue. You're not supposed to give certain place. It's a voluntary number. Let's put it that way. And that's why some places, if you go and they ask you for it, you don't have to give them. The only thing they'll tell you, you won't get the benefit. You don't have to give us, but you won't get the benefit, right? Because, like I said, it's voluntary. But sometimes people think that it's mandatory. No, it is voluntary. The Social Security number comes from the Social Security Act. The Social Security Act is codified under 42 of the United States Code. Okay? That code was non-positive. Okay? There are only two sets of codes out there. You have positive codes and non-positive codes. Positive codes is mandatory upon everybody. For example, if somebody commit murder, it's mandatory that they pay the price. Once they are being convicted of the murder, they have to pay the price. Or if somebody steal or rob, anything like that, or commit a crime like that, that's mandatory. There have to be some type of restitution. However, the non-positive codes are they require signature and consent for performance, meaning we have to voluntarily consent to them. So that's why the Social Security Administration, they can't force you. People go there, sit down, and voluntarily sign up for it. Not everybody have a Social Security card. Not everybody have a Social Security number, because it's not mandatory. It's voluntary. Why? Because 42 USC is one of the codes that is non-positive. Non-positive codes are not mandatory. Okay? I think it's about 54 annotated codes. Okay? Some are positive and some are non-positive. People study these things. It's found under 1 USC 204, known as prima facie or prima facie. Some people say prima facie is a Latin term that means at first evidence. Meaning, at first evidence, these things seems like they're law, they seems like they are mandatory. But once you detect rebuttal, once you can rebut it and show that it is, you're good. So, like I said, it's all non-positive. And so look up the quotes. Anything that is non-positive is voluntary. Nobody can force you into it. Um, the welfare program, the United States Department of Health and Human Service, the TANF program, temporary aid for needy family. All these are under 42 USC. They are voluntary. Nobody can force anybody into it. Child support. Child support is under 42 USC under the United States Department of Health and Human Services. It is voluntary. Nobody can force you into child support. It is voluntary because that code is non-positive and it requires you to voluntarily um, um, consent to its jurisdiction. They cannot force it upon you. They cannot do anything to you if you say, look, I don't want to be a part of any of this 42 UFC or any other code that is non-positive. Okay? So people know your rights. Don't let these devils and demons and banksters force anything down your throat. It's time that we wake up. This is the era of enlightenment. People are getting, their eyes are being opened more and more every day. And we're reaching a point now where anybody want to stay in the darkness is they that choose to be in darkness. But there's enough information and they have to be deciphered properly because not everything, as we know, that we read or see on the internet is true. We have to use wisdom. A lot of it is truth and a lot of it is not true. So we have to do our studies, we have to do our research, and we have to make sure that we know our rights. Now, let me ask this question before I finish. The average person, if you ask them, what does rights mean? Most people will say, I don't know. My right is my right. But you're answering a question with the same question. What is a right? It's very simple. You guys gonna learn this today. The word right, it was declared in the Constitution. It said, we hold this truth to be self-evident that all men are created equal and are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, which among these are the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To preserve these rights, government were instituted amongst men, deriving its just powers from the consent of the governed. Second Continental Congress, July 4th, 1776. So the word right, it is an unalienable duty from the Almighty and it cannot be transferred by anyone. Very important. Your rights, my right, nobody can transfer it. This right come from our Creator. When He created us, and it's inherent. Inherent means the moment we come from our mother's womb, we are born with the right of nature, the right to life, freedom, and to pursue blessedness, or some people call it happiness. These are rights from the Almighty. Government cannot give us rights. Government were instituted to protect these rights. What happened was this: when the people were created on the earth, the people choose from amongst them a group of people and said to this group of people, say, look, while we go about our everyday, we have to have rules and laws. So we were putting bodies in place to protect these rights. That group is known as government. So government gets its authority from we the people. That's why in the Constitution it started with the big writing, we the people. It's all about we the people. It's a republic. Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Republic Constitution states every state in the Union is guaranteed a republican form of government. What is a republican form of government? Rights are protected by the Constitution, and it's a government by consent. The government cannot do anything without our consent. They are supposed to be our servants. But sometimes they have the people feeling like the people are the servant. No, it is the government that is supposed to be the servant. The moment that the government not listening to the people, that government becomes a tyrannical government. And a tyrannical government, under Article 3 of the Constitution, there is a treasonous government, and they can be repelled and they can be removed by the people. Treason, one of the punishment for treason is death. Okay, it's very serious. There are people I see going in office, taking oath to uphold the Constitution and just turning a blind eye and disrespecting the people and violating their rights. It is treason. And let me say this, the men first time, like I'd say in the 16th, 17th century, that was when men had backbone. Back then, if they violate their rights, any government official violates their right, you know what the men them will do back then? They'll come out and they'll have a public trial and they'll set up the noose. It could be Mr. Sheriff, Mr. Judge, anybody that commit treason. They string them up right there in front of the people. Now what happened nowadays? These government actors, they become so bold and so disrespectful that they are violating people left to right. They're destroying people's family, taking away people's children for money. They're doing all kind of evil. They're trampling upon people's right to bear arms. They're doing every evil you can think. And then guess what? They just say, oh, if you don't like what I do, go and appeal me. And then when you go and appeal, guess what? You go to one of their other friends who are in the bar. And then the cycle continues, and then the people just end up. A lot of people right now are in prison who haven't committed any crime. They are in there based upon some bogus statute. Statutes are not laws. Okay? Statutes are for corporate entities and legal bodies that makes those statutes. It's known as bylaws, and the statute for these corporations can only be enforced by the corporation that makes them, and they only have jurisdiction to the people who consent to their jurisdiction. Let me give you an example. Walmart is a corporation. Walmart cannot force people to work with them. However, if somebody volunteers to work with Walmart, what Walmart does, Walmart give them what is known as a policy handbook. The word policy is a code word that means interest. So what Walmart does, Walmart says, go through this policy book, and when you finish, sign it and date it. So right there's an agreement. The new worker now is saying, look, I'm going to abide by the policy or the rules of Walmart. So let's say one of that policy says you cannot use your phone during regular working hours, okay, or you might be terminated, warned, or fired, whatever. Once a person signs that policy book, they're voluntarily agreeing to the rules of Walmart. Now, if somebody, a shopper, a customer walking from out the street and they're on their phone, does that Walmart policy of not using their phone during working hours apply to them? No. Why? Because they're not a part of that policy. They don't contract to the corporate policy of Walmart as an employer. It's the same thing. Now, imagine if Walmart was to say to those customers who come in, even though you're not a part of our policy, we're going to punish you because you come in and you're using phone, even though that doesn't apply to you. No, you can't, because they're not a part of that policy. It's the same thing with statute. There's a lot of statute that they make for corporation that they're forcing down the people's throat, and the people never consent or agreed to it. Yet still they're punishing them and sending a lot of them to prison because they did not comply with the statute of the corporation. The Supreme Court of the United States states that the statutes apply to what they call an inner circle doctrine. Inner circle means the statute only applies to those at the corporation, that inner circle. Only them it applies to. It doesn't apply to anybody outside of the circle. Okay? Statutes are not law. And like I said, there are many people right now in prison over some foolishness. Some foolishness. Their lives are destroyed. When somebody go to prison, their family go to prison too, because the family is out there suffering. Why? Because of evil. The bankers, the more codes, the more statute they make, is the less freedom they trample upon. Sorry, it's the more freedom they trample upon, and people are quicker to be put away. It's not supposed to be like that. That's why the framers put a constitution and have each one of them swear to uphold and defend it so they can defend the people's freedom. Okay? So that's my piece for now. Hope you guys learn if even something from this. But when we give this information, we don't give this information for you to just take it and run with it. What it is like a starting point. Say, oh, okay, let me go look into that some more and research. And you'll see it, because I don't speak anything unless it's properly researched, properly documented, and I challenge them to make sure they stand firm before I come and present it. So anything that I produce, it cannot be proven wrong. People can't even, sometimes people can't even deny the truth, but they cannot prove it wrong. Nobody can prove the truth wrong. They can deny it. Maybe they're biased. They can deny it for whatever reason, but they cannot prove it wrong. No one can prove truth wrong. Okay. So, Brother Mike, you have anything before we finish this out to the people?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, everything that you guys were saying today kind of go back to what it says on my shirt. It says, Yahweh can judge me because all these people out there are trying to oppress us through the bunks and all this system. But when these things happen, of course, when you think about it, you just go back to the scripture where you say, these people will oppress my people, and those people will be cast into the lake of fire. We go into the kingdom, be burnt down to their soul and everything, and you won't be able to see him again. So you just see that, you just say that, I see that's part of the reason why I say, just try to give thanks to the Most High because see. I don't like about you guys, but I get really excited when I hear this information because one thing all the people don't know is that there is judgment. Yeah, I don't know that there is judgment, and I mean the Most High will come back to ask these people everything they've been doing. So if you don't be careful, most people choose to do these bad things that cause the people to lose their life or not be able to take care of the family and all that kind of stuff, or not have enough money to do certain things. That he would destroy them and cast them in a lake of fire. It would be try to burn their soul and everything, and kill their spirits and all that stuff. And after that, we go into the kingdom and all that stuff and live eternal life and do the will of the Father. So that's why I said just trust in them, follow his commandments, and he'll be there for us and do that to live eternal life. Maybe enter the kingdom.
Praise his name. Hallelujah. All right. Thank you, Brother Mike. Thank you. All right, brothers and sisters. So with that, we are going to sign off. Might come back later, maybe tomorrow with another video, depending on how the Almighty inspire us. And we come on whenever we're inspired. And I was inspired tonight to share these valuable information. So we will talk again. Until then, Israelites and non-Israelites, all people, just be strong, and we're approaching some very serious time in history. Okay, very, very serious time in history that only the fittest of the fittest will survive. That's how bad it's gonna be. So just stay firm in Messiah, and we shall prevail. Until then, Shalom Aleichem. Peace be unto thee.
Peace be unto thee.
Shalom.
Stock up on more food too.
Yes.
Food shortage is coming, so make sure you guys go to the store, buy food now so that